The day before the college fall formal, a new announcement was posted in the Discord channel for Sigma Alpha, the fraternity where my online boyfriend Tyler belonged. For tonight's Freshman Dare Challenge, whoever draws the King of Spades must bring Tyler's 300-pound online girlfriend to the formal tomorrow night. Right after that, Tyler posted a photo of me from last Christmas into the channel. In the photo, I was wearing an absurdly oversized reindeer sweater, my chin fat piled up in folds, looking so huge, I seemed like a moving mountain. The guys in the channel instantly exploded. Bro, are you serious? Whoever takes her to the dance is definitely going to die of embarrassment. Tyler, you actually brought her to Harbor City? Wouldn't a girl that size need 2 plain seats? Tyler sent a laughing emoji. Relax, I already told her this was a romantic in-person meetup. I'll bet $500 that no matter who picks her up tomorrow night, she'll break down crying because she can't fit into a formal dress. Julian, known as the fraternity's ice-cold chairman, never said a word. But Luke, the guy who loved stirring up trouble the most, kept tagging my lurking alt account like crazy. Miss Chloe, you have to come tomorrow night. Don't bail at the last minute. I looked at the insults scrolling across the screen and clenched my fingers. For this cross-state meetup, I had spent a full year dropping from nearly 300 pounds to 130. I looked at the clearly defined lines of my abs in the mirror and at the tight, sultry red designer gown hanging in the fitting room. Quietly, I placed a $1,000 bet in the pool that I would show up on time. The amount in the channel's betting pool jumped instantly. $1,000 stood out sharply among all the $10 and $20 pocket change bets. The chat box, which had been flooding nonstop, froze for a few seconds. Soon, someone sent a string of question marks. What's going on? Who is this lurker? They dropped $1,000 right away. That ID looks unfamiliar. Where did this rich guy come from? Could it be Chloe herself? Tyler, you didn't kick her out, did you? I put down my coffee cup and tapped on the screen.
I'm Chloe.
Winner takes all. See you tomorrow night. The moment the message was sent, my phone started vibrating wildly. Tyler flooded my DMs. Are you crazy? Where did you get $1,000? Didn't you say all your part-time money was going toward tuition? The guys were just joking. What are you doing jumping in and making a scene? I looked at the accusations he sent, my gaze landing on the red dress in the mirror. The old me was insecure and didn't like talking to people in real life. So I chose an online relationship and met Tyler. Over the past year of that online relationship, I had helped him revise 14 economics term papers. When he got drunk at a party in the middle of the night, I stayed on FaceTime with him until dawn across the time zones. He complained that all the girls around him were too shallow, and only I understood his soul. Looking back, he was just unwilling to lose a free high-end academic ghostwriter and a 24-hour online therapist. I didn't reply to him. Luke, the one who loved stirring trouble the most, sent 3 whistle emojis in a row.
Nice.
A 300-pound dose of courage is heavyweight, all right. Since Chloe dares to come, then tomorrow night's King of Spades punishment has to be played all the way through. Tyler, now it's our turn to draw cards. A link to a virtual card drawing minigame popped up in the channel. Tyler was obviously panicking. He directly tagged me in the channel. Chloe, be good and cancel the bet. Tomorrow night's formal is black tie. You don't have the right clothes, and coming will only embarrass you. It sounded like concern, but really, he was just afraid of losing face. I was about to type when a new message popped up in the channel. Can you all not be so mean? It was Serena, the business school's recognized head cheerleader. Even though Chloe's body type is a little unusual, flying over here from so far away isn't easy. Tyler, how can you use your girlfriend as a bet? Chloe, if you don't have a formal dress, I can lend you one. But my size is XS, so you might need to check a plus-size women's store to see if they have any one-size-fits-all capes. The group instantly burst into laughter. Serena really is kind. A cape is perfect, just cover her up and problem solved. Unreal. Let's just change tomorrow night's formal theme to a Halloween pre-show. I'm scared I'll laugh out loud. I looked at the insults scrolling across the screen and felt my heart turn colder. Over the past year, in order to stand beside Tyler with my head held high, I had sweated it out in the gym every single day. When stomach pain hit from extreme dieting, I still had to grit my teeth and help him with data analysis in front of my computer while my body cramped up. All because I thought he was the first person who loved only my soul. I left the group and threw my phone onto the sofa. Then I turned and walked to the full-length mirror, pulling up the invisible zipper at the back of the red dress. At 7 o'clock that night, the outside of the Claude Hotel in Harbor City was brightly lit. I stepped through the revolving doors in 10-inch stilettos. The fitted red dress wrapped around my curves, and the slit in the skirt showed off my long legs as I walked. A lot of eyes in the lobby turned toward me. I walked straight to the elevator. My phone kept vibrating inside my clutch. I took it out and glanced at it. The Discord channel had already switched to live stream mode. Luke held up his phone at the entrance to the ballroom, a smile on his lips. Guys, it's 7:15. Chloe, the 300-pound girl, still hasn't shown up. Tyler, your $1,000 is basically guaranteed. The camera shifted and landed on Tyler, who was dressed in a custom tuxedo. He was holding champagne, and Serena, in a white sequined fishtail gown, stood beside him. Serena was clinging to his arm affectionately. Tyler, you're such a jerk. Chloe must be hiding in some motel somewhere, too scared to come out. Tyler took a sip of wine, a smug smile hanging at the corner of his mouth. I already tried my best to talk her out of it. She insisted on placing the better self. If she can't even handle this much pressure, how is she supposed to survive in Harbor City? Laughter broke out behind them in agreement. Just then, the elevator doors opened. I put away my phone and stepped out. At the end of the hallway was the sign-in desk for the ballroom. Several fraternity freshmen were checking names against the list. I walked over and gave my name. Chloe. The freshman in charge of registration was a chubby guy wearing glasses. When he heard my name, he jerked his head up. His gaze swept over my face and the red dress several times, and the pen in his hand dropped straight onto the table. You are Chloe? He stammered so badly, he could barely get the words out. Is there a registration record?
My tone was calm.
Yes, there is, but he swallowed hard. Tonight your escort is Chairman Julian. You'll need to wait for him to bring you in.
Julian.
The ice-cold chairman who had never spoken in the channel flashed through my mind. So the King of Spades in last night's draw was him in the end. Where is he? On the terrace. The freshman pointed to a glass door on the side of the hallway. I turned around, pushed open the glass door, and walked outside. The terrace had no main lights on, only wall lamps casting a faint glow. A man in a black bespoke suit stood with his back to me at the railing. The night wind blew past, bringing a cool cedar scent. Hearing the sound of high heels, he turned around, revealing a refined face. His features were deep and sharp, and his brows and eyes carried a coldness that kept people at a distance. His gaze landed on me, without any cheap appraisal, only curiosity. Wrong place.
His voice was low. No.
I walked toward him and met his gaze. I'm Chloe. I heard you drew the King of Spades. A faint shift crossed Julian's face. He looked at me, and a hint of thought flashed through his dark gray eyes. Tyler's online girlfriend?
Ex-girlfriend.
I corrected him. Last night, I had sent Tyler a breakup message, but he hadn't replied. Coming here today was just me putting a close to my first love. He narrowed his eyes slightly, his gaze dropping from my face and pausing at the faint muscle lines visible in the slit of the red dress. There was nothing frivolous in it. He was only confirming some fact. How long did it take you? 1 year and 2 months. He nodded. Good stamina. You saw the betting pool in the channel. I looked him in the eye. I need to get in. If you think taking me inside would hurt your image, I can go in by myself. Since I drew the punishment, I don't have a habit of running from it. Julian straightened up, buttoned his jacket, and held out his right arm to me. Let's go. I placed my hand in the crook of his arm. The muscle under the fabric was solid and powerful. We walked side by side toward the ballroom doors. Behind the heavy double doors, the noise was so loud it felt like it could blow the roof off. Luke's voice could be heard clearly even through the door. 5 minutes left. If Chloe still doesn't show, the betting pool gets settled right now. Tyler, you really cleaned up on this one. Not only did you dump a huge headache, you also picked up a free $1,000. The waiter at the door saw Julian and immediately bowed respectfully before opening the door. The light from the crystal chandelier poured out instantly. The noisy ballroom fell silent for a second the moment the door opened. Everyone instinctively looked toward the entrance. Julian was at the center of Harbor City's social circle, so every move he made was already under a spotlight. But at this moment, once those gazes landed on me and his arm, they all froze. I clearly saw that several guys not far away, each holding a glass of wine, had their mouths hanging open wide enough to fit a pool ball. Luke's phone was still held up in live stream mode, the camera pointed straight at us. Julian's here. Someone muttered under their breath. Who's that beauty beside him? Is she some other rich family's daughter? That red dress looks like a Milan runway couture piece this year. Damn, you'd need an insane figure to pull that off. I lifted my chin slightly and held onto Julian's arm, walking down the steps one by one. Wherever I passed, people automatically made way. I walked straight toward the center of the hall. Tyler was standing with his back to me, whispering and flirting with Serena. When he heard the strange silence around him, he turned around. The instant our eyes met, A clear flash of shock appeared in Tyler's eyes. He even let go of Serena's hand and subconsciously adjusted his bow tie.
He didn't recognize me.
Not only did he not recognize me, he lifted his chin slightly and came over on his own. He ignored Julian beside me and stared straight at my face. "Lovely lady." Tyler put on his signature deep, loving smile. "I don't think I've seen you at a Harbor City formal before. May I have the honor of buying you a drink?" As soon as Tyler finished speaking, envious looks shot over from all around. Serena stood not far away, her face slightly green, but she still kept up her polished socialite image and didn't lose her temper. Julian turned his head and glanced at me. He didn't speak, and he didn't withdraw his arm. He just stood quietly on the side. "Buy me a drink?" I let out a light laugh. That laugh made Tyler think he had succeeded. He stepped closer, his tone even more presumptuous. "Of course. A dazzling girl like you shouldn't be ignored. Julian's always so boring anyway. He doesn't know how to take care of a lady." I took a glass of red wine from a passing waiter's tray. Tyler immediately raised his own glass, ready to clink with me. Just as the two glasses were about to hit, I turned my wrist. The rim tilted. The crimson wine poured down the collar of his custom tuxedo. The white shirt was instantly stained red, and wine dripped down his chin. A wave of gasps erupted in the ballroom. Serena screamed and rushed over, frantically digging tissues out of her bag. "Are you crazy?"
She shouted at me.
"Do you know how expensive his suit is?" Tyler wiped his face in a flustered mess, and the loving mask on his face finally shattered completely. "Who the hell are you?" He glared at me through gritted teeth. I set the empty glass back on the tray. "What? You don't recognize me after I changed clothes?" I looked him in the eye and said each word clearly. "Didn't you bet $500 that I couldn't fit into a formal dress?" The whole ballroom went dead silent. Luke's phone fell straight onto the carpet. Exclamations of shock broke out in the crowd. The anger on Tyler's face froze instantly, his pupils contracting hard as he stared at me. "You." His lips trembled, unable to form a complete sound. "Let me reintroduce myself.
I'm Chloe."
130 pounds. I pulled a $1,000 check out of my clutch and tucked it between two fingers and slipped it neatly into the pocket of his still dripping suit. "You lost. Take the extra 1,000 and get your eyes checked." The moment I turned, I caught his wrist with my other hand and yanked him so hard that he staggered forward a step. Then I lowered my voice to something only the two of us could hear. "And don't think I don't know that the core data in that A+ final paper of yours was all run by me overnight. If I send the draft to your professor, guess what happens?" Tyler's face went instantly pale, and his grip loosened. Just then, Julian's voice came from behind me in a flat tone. "Tyler, since the game is over, you should fulfill the bet." Tyler jerked his head up. "What bet?" Julian stepped forward, blocking Tyler's hand when he tried to grab me. He looked down at Tyler from above, his tone without the slightest fluctuation. "The betting pool rule tonight was set by you. The loser has to crawl around the dance floor 3 times in front of everyone." Julian's dark gray eyes were cold as ice. "Now, you can start crawling." The silence in the ballroom was total. It was the kind of silence that precedes a disaster, dense, suffocating, and heavy enough to drown out the low hum of the air conditioning. Tyler's face drained of every drop of color. He stood frozen, the red wine dripping from his ruined silk lapels down to his polished Italian leather shoes. "Julian, you can't be serious." It was a joke. The whole challenge was just a joke for the group. I don't recall adding a clause that said the rules applied only when it was convenient for you, Julian said softly. He didn't raise his voice, but his tone carried the weight of someone used to giving orders that were never questioned. "You set the stakes. $500, 3 laps on your hands and knees. Across the floor. You made the pool, Tyler. Now pay up." "She tricked us," Serena screeched, her voice cracking as she stepped forward, her perfectly manicured nails digging into Tyler's wet arm. "Look at her.
She
hid her real identity. That's fraud. She lied about who she was." "I never lied about a single thing," Chloe said coldly, turning her head slightly to look Serena in the eye. "Every picture Tyler posted was real.
that
Sweater was real. My weight was real. The only difference is that while Tyler was spending his nights drinking at dive bars and begging me to write his papers, I was spending 2 hours a day on a treadmill and eating boiled chicken breasts." Chloe took a half step closer to Serena, her 10-inch heels giving her an effortless inch of height over the cheerleader. "If you're so worried about fraudulent presentations, Serena, maybe you should ask Tyler why he spent 6 months telling me he hated fake, shallow girls like you while taking my code to pass his midterms." Gasps echoed through the front row of spectators. Luke, who had managed to pick his dropped phone off the floor, stared wide-eyed as the live stream chat blew up with tens of thousands of messages per second. Holy shit, did she just pull a full ghostwriting expose? Tyler got built by an online girlfriend? LOL. Look at his face, he's terrified. Chloe, don't do this, Tyler muttered, his voice shaking now. All his earlier suave charisma evaporated. He looked around desperately, seeking support from his fraternity brothers, but the moment their eyes met Julian's dark, unyielding gaze, every single one of them looked away. Sigma Alpha wasn't just a college fraternity. In Harbor City, it was an incubator for future hedge fund managers and political dynasties. And Julian Vance's family owned half the financial district. Cross Julian, and your resume went straight into the incinerator before you even graduated. You have 2 minutes, Tyler, Julian said, checking a plain, ultra-thin Patek Philippe watch on his wrist. Either you honor the bet you made in front of 60 brothers, or I call an emergency board meeting tonight to review your code of conduct violations regarding academic dishonesty and public defamation. Tyler's knees trembled. He knew Julian wasn't bluffing. If an official investigation was launched into his academic record, his father's firm would pull his trust fund instantly. Fine, Tyler spat out, his eyes bloodshot with rage and humiliation. He dropped to his knees. The sound of his knees hitting the hardwood floor echoed through the vast ballroom. The crowd gasped again, then fell completely still. Tyler bent forward, placing his hands flat on the floor, right into a puddle of
Spilled wine.
his face was burning a violent shade of crimson as he began to
Crawl.
one lap. The fraternity brothers who had laughed at Chloe in the Discord channel 24 hours ago now stood in awkward, agonized silence. Some looked at the ceiling. Others stared at their own shoes. 2 laps. Serena pulled her hand back as if burned, retreating into the shadow of the crowd, unwilling to be seen anywhere near the man currently crawling like a beaten dog across the polished mahogany floor. 3 laps. When Tyler finally pushed himself back up, his hands were stained red, his trousers ruined, his head bowed low in utter disgrace. He didn't look at Chloe. He didn't look at Julian. He turned around and bolted out the double doors, pushing past the stunned waiters without a word. Julian didn't even watch him leave. He turned smoothly toward Chloe, his expression relaxing into a calm, unbothered composure. The air in here has gotten somewhat foul, Julian observed softly. Would you care to leave, Miss Chloe? Chloe looked at the quiet ballroom, then down at the wet $1,000 check, sticking out of the trash bin where Tyler had dropped it. With pleasure, Chairman. The cool night air of Harbor City hit Chloe's face the moment they stepped out of the hotel lobby. The rain had started to fall, a light mist that made the neon lights of the city reflect across the wet asphalt like liquid jewels. A sleek matte black Maybach pulled up to the curb within seconds. The driver jumped out, opening the back door with quiet efficiency. Get in, Julian said, holding his umbrella over Chloe's head, ensuring not a single drop of rain touched her red dress or her style dark hair. I'll drop you back at your hotel. Chloe hesitated for a fraction of a second, then slid into the leather interior. Julian followed, closing the door behind them. The quiet inside the cabin was immediate, cutting off the city noise entirely. You didn't seem surprised, Chloe said after a long moment, watching the city lights blur past the window. When I came out onto the terrace, you didn't even blink. Julian leaned back against the headrest, unbuttoning the top button of his collar. I checked the IP address of the account that dropped the $1,000 last night. Chloe turned her head quickly, her eyes narrowing. You tracked me? I ran the network logs for our fraternity Discord server, Julian corrected calmly. It took my assistant 4 minutes. The ping came from a luxury hotel downtown, registered under the name Chloe Lynn. A quick search of the university's regional honors program showed a Chloe Lynn who had won 3 national applied mathematics competitions. He turned his head to look at her, his deep gray eyes reflecting the passing streetlight glow. A girl with that level of intellectual rigor doesn't get taken down by petty fraternity boys. I wanted to see how you plan to execute your play. Chloe let out a short, quiet laugh. And? Was it up to your standards? It was efficient, Julian said, a subtle curve appearing at the corner of his lips. Though pouring $40 house wine on a $2,000 suit was a bit wasteful, you could have just ruined his career directly. Where's the fun in that? Chloe replied, her tone sharpening. He spent a year taking my work, making me feel like my only value was what I could produce for him behind a screen while he laughed at my weight behind my back. He deserved every drop. Julian was silent for a moment. His eyes drifted down to her hand, which was resting on her lap, fingers lightly clenched. He was an idiot, Julian said plainly. A blind, desperate idiot. Most men are when they think nobody's watching, Chloe murmured. Not all of us, Julian replied. The tone wasn't offensive, it was a simple statement of fact. The car glided to a smooth stop outside the entrance of Chloe's hotel. The valet opened the door, but before Chloe could step out, Julian spoke again. Tyler's father sits on the dean's advisory board at Harbor Business School. Julian said, his voice dropping an octave. Tomorrow morning, when the embarrassment wears off, Tyler will realize that his academic reputation is completely destroyed if you leak those drafts. He won't just sit back and take
it.
He's going to strike back, and he'll use his family's influence to try to brand you as an extortionist. Chloe turned back, her chin lifted high. Let him try. I have every commit hash, every timestamp dataset, and every FaceTime screen recording saved on 3 separate encrypted drives. Julian looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, a genuine, warm smile broke through his icy exterior. Good, he said softly. Then save me a front row seat for round 2. By 8 a.m. the next morning, the online student forum for Harbor City University had completely imploded. The live stream recording from the previous night had been clipped, edited, and reposted across every social media platform imaginable. The title trending at the top of the campus board was undeniable. XGF returns as a goddess. Sigma Alpha's Tyler forced to crawl at fall formal. The comment section was an absolute war zone. Is that really the same girl from the Christmas sweater photo? No way. That's an elite-level transformation. Tyler literally made her do his senior thesis, and then tried to publicly shame her. He got off easy, with just crawling. Did you see Chairman Julian standing right beside her? He looked like her personal bodyguard. Word on campus is Tyler's father is flying in from New York today. Things are about to get ugly. Inside her hotel suite, Chloe sat on the plush sofa, wearing a comfortable silk robe, a warm cup of black coffee in her hands. Her laptop was open on the coffee table, displaying a massive spreadsheet of data logs, email headers, and file creation dates. Her phone buzzed. It was an unfamiliar number. She picked it up and put it on speaker. Hello? Chloe Lynn. A harsh, middle-aged voice barked through the speaker. This is Richard Vance. Excuse me, Richard Cole, Tyler's father. Chloe took a quiet sip of her coffee. Good morning, Mr. Cole. Don't good morning me, young lady, the man snarled. I've seen the videos circulating online. You have staged a malicious, targeted character assassination against my son. You entered private fraternity premises under false pretenses and publicly defamed him. Your son invited me, Chloe said calmly. In fact, your son's fraternity held a public gambling pool centered around my physical appearance.
Would you like me
to forward the Discord screenshots to the press, Mr. Cole? I'm sure the board of your hedge fund would love to read the slurs your son used. There was a sudden, furious pause on the other end of the line. Richard Cole was a seasoned corporate negotiator, but he wasn't used to a 22-year-old girl speaking to him with such cold precision. Listen to me carefully. Richard Cole lowered his voice, dropping the shouting. For a venomous, legal tone. You are an outsider from a lower-tier state school. Tyler is graduating cum laude next month and moving into a senior analyst role at Vanguard. If you try to destroy his academic credentials over some petty college romance, I will tie you up in defamation lawsuits until you're bankrupt. You won't even be able to afford a public defender. Chloe felt a cold flare of anger in her chest, but her voice remained as steady as ice. Mr. Cole, your son didn't just fail to write his senior thesis. He paid, or rather, emotionally manipulated, me into building his entire economic forecasting model from scratch. The core algorithms inside his paper are copyrighted under my name in the National Software Registry from 6 months ago. She paused, leaning toward the phone. I don't need a public defender. I have the receipts. And if you try to sue me, those receipts will become public record during discovery. Tell Tyler I'll see him at the dean's office at 2 p.m. today. She hung up before he could respond. She slammed the phone onto the cushion, her chest heaving slightly. The anger from the past year, the late nights, the tears, the feeling of being hidden away, like an embarrassing secret while Tyler paraded around campus, was turning into pure lethal focus. Her laptop chimed with an incoming email. It was from the Dean of Academic Integrity at Harvard Business School. Subject: Urgent Inquiry. Allegations of academic fraud re. Student Tyler Cole. Dear Ms. Lin, please be present at Hall B, Administration Building, at 1400 hours today for a preliminary review panel. Directly beneath that automated notification was another email sent from a private, encrypted address. From J. Vance to C. Lin text. The Dean's panel is stacked with Cole's allies. Don't go in alone. I'll meet you at the fountain at 1:45 p.m. Chloe stared at the short message. A slow, genuine smile touched her lips. At 1:45 p.m., the sun broke through the clouds over the quadrangle of Harbor City University. The towering Gothic architecture of the campus usually intimidated visiting students, but Chloe walked across the stone courtyard with her head held high. She wore a tailored navy blue blazer over a white silk blouse, high-waisted trousers, and clean white leather heels. Her long dark hair was tied back into a sleek, professional ponytail. She looked nothing like the heartbroken girl who had spent last winter sobbing over Discord messages. Beside the central stone fountain, Julian was waiting. He had traded his evening tuxedo for a charcoal three-piece suit, looking every bit the heir to an empire. Several passing students were taking quiet photos of him from afar, but Julian's attention was locked entirely on Chloe the moment she stepped into view. You look ready for court, Julian said, his eyes approving. I am, Chloe said, clutching a sleek black leather portfolio under her arm. How bad is the panel? Dean Henderson is the chair, Julian explained as they walked side by side toward the grand stone steps of the administration building. He's received over $200,000 in research grants from Richard Cole's foundation over the past 3 years. He will try to frame this as a he said, she said, personal dispute between exes, dismiss your evidence as fabricated out of jealousy, and quiet the whole thing down before the graduation board meets next
Week.
And what about the other board members? The vice chair is Dr. Eris Thorne, Julian replied, a dark glimmer in his eyes. He's a purist. He hates administrative corruption, but he's quiet. If we give him hard, unassailable proof, he will override Henderson. I have the raw code, Chloe said firmly. I have the original Python scripts, with my unique metadata signatures. Good, Julian said, stopping at the top of the marble steps right before the grand double doors. He turned to face her, his height towering over her, but his shadow felt protective rather than imposing. One more thing.
What?
Richard Cole brought 3 corporate lawyers with him. They will try to intimidate you the second you sit down. Remember who you are, Chloe. You didn't just survive a year of their garbage. You outsmarted all of them. Chloe met his gaze, her heart beating with a steady, fierce rhythm. Thanks,
Julian.
Don't thank me yet, he said softly, reaching out to open the heavy brass door. For her. Let's go take what's yours. The air inside Halby was heavy with the smell of old wood, paper, and authority. At the long mahogany table sitting at the far end of the room sat Dean Henderson, a stern, gray-haired man with heavy glasses, flanked by 4 senior faculty members. On the left side of the room sat Tyler Cole, dressed in an impeccably tailored navy suit, looking pale but confident. Next to him was his father, Richard Cole, flanked by 2 sharp-looking men in expensive gray suits, holding leather briefcases. When the door opened and Chloe walked in, followed closely by Julian Vance, the atmosphere in the room shifted violently. Richard Cole's eyes narrowed instantly. Dean Henderson's eyebrows shot up. Julian. Dean Henderson cleared his throat, adjusting his glasses. This is an internal academic disciplinary panel. Fraternity representatives are not permitted unless summoned. I'm not here as a fraternity representative, Dean Henderson, Julian said, smoothly, stepping into the room and pulling out a chair at the observer's desk, near the side wall. I am here as a voting member of the Student Advisory Oversight Committee. Under Article 4, Section 12 of the University Charter, any case involving severe academic misconduct that threatens the institution's accreditation requires an advisory observer. I have every right to sit here. Dean Henderson's jaw tightened, but he couldn't argue. He glanced nervously at Richard Cole, who gave a brief, imperious nod. Very well, Henderson said, knocking his gavel once on the wooden desk. We are here to address serious allegations raised regarding the authorship of senior student Tyler Cole's honors thesis, Predictive Neural Networks in Cross-Border Capital Flows.
Tennis.
Lynn, you have submitted a claim stating that you wrote this paper in its entirety. I did, Chloe said clearly, standing behind her side of the table, resting her hands on the leather folder. Tyler let out a loud, mocking scoff. That's ridiculous, Dean.
Chloe is a
Student at an online distance learning program. She doesn't even have access to the advanced financial databases we use at Harbor. She's mad because I broke up with her 2 days ago, and she's using this ridiculous lie to try to destroy my career. Is that so? Chloe turned her gaze toward Tyler, her voice calm and measured. Tyler, if you wrote the neural network module yourself, could you please explain to Dr. Thorne why you chose a long short-term memory architecture over a standard gated recurrent unit for handling the volatility parameters in Section 3? Tyler froze. The color drained from his face again. That's proprietary algorithmic structure. I don't need to answer your pop quiz. It's not proprietary, Dr. Eris Thorne, the vice chair, suddenly interrupted, leaning forward, his sharp eyes locked on Tyler. It's basic methodology, Mr.
Cole.
If you spent 6 months writing the code, you should be able to answer that in 5 seconds. He doesn't need to answer anything. Richard Cole slammed a hand on the table, standing up. My son's academic record speaks for itself. This young woman is attempting extortion. We have text messages showing she demanded money from him. You mean the $1,000 bet your son placed in a public channel?
Chloe
Asked smoothly. She pulled a tabbed binder out of her folder and slid 4 copies across the long table to the faculty members. These are the Git repository commit histories, Chloe declared, her voice ringing clear through the vaulted room. Every single line of code in Tyler's paper was pushed from my private IP address between January 14th and April 22nd. Furthermore, I have embedded an invisible digital watermark, a recursive prime number string containing my initials, within the data compilation scripts submitted to the university portal. Dr. Thorne immediately pulled a tablet toward himself, tapping frantically on his screen to cross-reference the university's submission server. A heavy, breathless silence fell over the room. The sound of Dr. Thorne's typing
was like the ticking of a time bomb.
10 seconds. 20 seconds. Dr. Thorne stopped typing. He looked up, his face grim, turning to stare directly at Tyler Cole. The digital signature is there, Dr. Thorne said quietly. It matches Ms. Lynn's timestamp from 6 months ago. Dean Henderson looked like he had swallowed glass. Dr. Thorne, surely there could be an administrative error, a shared workstation. An administrative error that automatically embeds an outsider's encrypted initials inside the compilation binaries. Dr. Thorne asked, his tone laced with absolute disgust. Dean Henderson, this isn't just ghostwriting. This is systematic, premeditated academic fraud submitted for high honors. Richard Cole turned on his son, his face turning dark purple with fury. Tyler, what the hell is this? Dad, listen to me, she set me up. Tyler stammered, backing away from the table, his hands shaking wildly. She told me she was just helping me edit. I didn't know she put her name in the code. You didn't know because you didn't write a single line of it, Chloe said, staring at him with pure, cold indifference. You sat on FaceTime while I spent 80 hours debugging your regressions so you could go out drinking with Serena and the rest of your fraternity. She closed her binder with a sharp snap. Dean Henderson, I am filing an official claim with the National Board of Academic Integrity. If this university attempts to sweep Tyler Cole's fraud under the rug to protect his father's donations, I will release the complete raw dataset along with the video evidence to every financial news outlet in the state by 5 p.m. today. Richard Cole's head lawyer leaned over and whispered frantically into Richard's
ear.
Sir, if this hits the press, Vanguard will rescind his job offer immediately, and the SEC will launch an audit into your foundation's university.
Yes.
We have to settle this now. Richard Cole closed his eyes, his breathing heavy, looking suddenly 20 years older. He opened his briefcase, slammed it shut, and turned to look at Chloe with pure, unadulterated hatred. What do you want? Richard rasped. I don't want your money, Mr. Cole, Chloe said, her voice echoing off the high stone walls. I want full academic credit restored to my name. I want Tyler Cole expelled from Harbor City University with a permanent mark of academic dishonesty on his transcript. And I want a formal, public written apology posted to the university's main portal by tomorrow morning. Expelled? Tyler shrieked, his voice breaking.
Dad.
You can't let them expel
me.
My entire life is over if I get expelled. Shut up. Richard Cole roared, turning and slapping his son across the face. With an echoing crack, Tyler staggered back, clutching his cheek, tears springing to his eyes. Richard looked back at the panel, his voice hollow. We accept the withdrawal of the thesis. Tyler will pack his belongings and leave campus within 24 hours. Dean Henderson slumped back in his leather chair, completely powerless to intervene. The board will issue the formal expulsion notice by the end of the day. Chloe stood still, feeling an overwhelming, quiet calm settle deep within her
Soul.
The year of pain, the feeling of invisible insignificance, the shame, it was all washed away in that single moment. She turned her head and glanced at Julian. Julian was sitting back in his chair, his arms crossed over his chest, looking at her with an expression of quiet, profound pride. By the next afternoon, the expulsion notice for Tyler Cole had been pinned to the front page of the Harbor City University website. The fallout was swift and absolute. Vanguard officially revoked his employment offer within 2 hours of the announcement. Serena, realizing that Tyler was now completely ruined and facing a barrage of public shame, deleted all photos of him from her social media accounts and blocked his number before nightfall. The fraternity channel for Sigma Alpha was purged. Julian, utilizing his authority as chairman, permanently revoked the charters of Luke and 3 other senior members who had participated in the harassing bets, stripping them of their housing privileges and fraternity titles. The rain had cleared completely by sunset, leaving the Harbor City skyline framed in brilliant shades of amber and gold. Chloe stood on the roof terrace of the Claude Hotel, leaning against the glass railing, watching the ships pass through the harbor below. She wore a simple white sweater and black trousers, her hair flying softly in the evening breeze. Footsteps sounded on the deck behind her. Julian walked over, holding 2 glasses of sparkling mineral water. He handed one to her, his shoulder lightly brushing against hers as he leaned against the railing. It's all over, Chloe said softly, looking at the water.
He's gone.
His father pulled him out of the city this morning. It's not over, Julian said quietly. Chloe turned her head to look at him, puzzled. What do you mean? Julian pulled a thick, elegant white envelope out of his inner jacket pocket and handed it to her. Dr. Thorne called an emergency meeting of the graduate selection committee today, Julian said, his voice smooth and steady. They reviewed your original research papers, the ones you actually wrote for yourself, not the simplified versions you handed to Tyler. Chloe took the envelope, her fingers trembling slightly as she opened it. Inside was a formal offer letter for a fully funded, prestigious master's and PhD direct track fellowship at the Harbor Institute of Quantitative Economics, complete with a chief researcher position at the university's AI research laboratory. This, Chloe gasped, her eyes scanning the ink, reading the numbers and terms in utter disbelief. This is the top program in the country. They didn't give it to you out of pity, Julian said, turning to face her. Completely, his gray eyes dark and serious. Dr. Thorne said your mathematical model on predictive market volatility is 3 years ahead of anything currently published by Harvard or MIT. You belong here, Chloe. Not in the background, writing papers for idiots, but at the very front of the room. Chloe looked down at the letter, feeling a warm, unbidden tear slip down her
cheek.
For so long, she had believed that she had to shrink herself, that she had to change her body, hide her mind, and compromise her dignity just to be worthy of someone's attention. But standing here now, she realized that true power wasn't about fitting into a dress or winning a petty bet. It was about standing unbroken in your own truth. Thank you, she whispered, looking up into Julian's eyes. Julian reached out, his long fingers gently catching the single tear on her cheek, his thumb lingering against her skin with a warmth that sent a soft pulse through her chest. Don't thank me, he said softly, his voice lower now, intimate and quiet, against the evening wind. You built this path yourself. I just cleared the garbage out of your way. 3 months later, the annual Harbor City Economics Gala was held at the Grand Opera House, an event that brought together the brightest financial minds, university scholars, and industry leaders from across the country. The red carpet outside was lined with reporters and photographers. A black Maybach glided to a halt at the main entrance. The door opened and Julian Vance stepped out, impeccably dressed in a bespoke black tuxedo. He didn't walk ahead. Instead, he turned back and extended his hand toward the open
Door.
A hand with slender, elegant fingers rested in his. Chloe stepped out into the flashing lights. She wore a breathtaking, midnight blue silk gown that fell around her figure. Like liquid velvet, her dark hair swept up in a sophisticated chignon, exposing the delicate line of her neck and shoulders. Her eyes were bright, confident, and utterly radiant. The crowd of press photographers erupted into a flurry of camera flashes. Chairman Vance, is this your partner for the evening? Ms. Lin,
Can you?
comment on your upcoming publication in the Journal of Quantitative Finance. Chloe didn't flinch under the blinding lights. She didn't hide. She smiled smoothly at the cameras, her arm wrapped comfortably through Julian's, feeling the solid, unwavering strength of the man beside her. As they walked up the grand steps into the brilliant, crystal-lit foyer of the Opera House, Julian leaned down slightly, his lips brushing against her ear. "You look stunning, Dr. Lin," he murmured softly. Chloe laughed, a clear, beautiful sound that echoed over the ambient hum of the string quartet playing in the hall. "I'm not a doctor yet, Chairman Vance," she teased, turning her head to meet his
Gaze.
"You will be soon," Julian replied, his gray eyes filling with an unmistakable, profound warmth as he pulled her closer against his side. "And I have every intention of being there for every single step of it." Chloe looked out over the magnificent hall, at the sea of brilliant minds, bright future prospects, and endless possibilities stretching out before her. The old Christmas photo, the insults in the Discord channel, the tears on cold nights, they were all just distant noise now, lost in the roar of a life she had carved out with her own hands. She held Julian's hand tighter, lifted her chin high, and stepped forward into her new world.